Where's the safe?
Oh, my. Aren't you warm in that? We wore those in Minnesota only on the coldest days.
Where's the safe?
Oh, you want to put your gun in the safe, of course. It would never fit in those small room safes we have.
The safe!
Well, I don't know where the safe is. I'll have to call our manager, Roland.
No.
Oh, that's okay. He won't mind. Roland, I'm sorry to wake you, but we have a guest here who wants to put something in the safe, and I don't know where the safe is, silly me. Oh, okay. Thanks so much. It'll just be a few minutes. Could I ask you a question? I mean, the mask is a tip-off, but are you a first-time visitor to Miami?
What about the safe?
Oh, Roland's on his way down. Where are you going?
The Carlton.
Hello? There's a male Caucasian, 6 feet tall, about 175 pounds, probably mid-30s. He's wearing a ski mask, brown eyes, prominent Adam's apple. He's carrying a .357 Magnum. And he's on his way to the Carlton Hotel. Who am I? Just a citizen who isn't quite as stupid as everybody thinks she is. Oh, I'm sorry. This is 411. Well, could you give me the number for 911?
Hey, what you thought about that one? That was funny. That's Betty White. You remember her from Golden Girls? Yes, ma'am. That's Betty White. Now, today I'm bringing you a different. Well, it's not different. It involves some amount of research, but I think you may find it very interesting when we talk about bigwigs in this society, political heavyweights. You know, you don't get, well, you don't get as, well, you don't get bigger than the Bicknells and Norman Horn. You remember that Norman Horn was the People's National Party's treasurer in 2016. I remember he was the one that had complained when the PNP lost that a lot of the candidates had received money directly and never handed it over to the PNP, and they contributed. At least he contributed that as part of the reason why the PNP lost. So I'm going to begin, first of all, by giving a little something about Norman Horn. I was able to find much about the Bicknell brothers, except to say that they didn't seem to be poor. I seem to have been born with a gold spoon in their mouth and enjoyed good life in Jamaica. Nothing at all wrong with that. That's what we all aspire to. So, but when it comes to Norman, though, Norman was not a rich fellow. He was born in a family of 10 and I'm assuming that he was born in Burn Savannah in St. Elizabeth. And his full name is Norman Washington Horn. And of course, you can imagine he got that name because his father was a very close associate of Norman Manley. So, of course, his father named him after and in honor of Norman Manley. I suppose he wanted him to be a great barrister, you know, and intellect, and so on. So, as I said before, he grew up in Bird Savannah, poor, in a family of 10 children. And at 16, he left St. Elizabeth for Kingston, where he enrolled in Excelsior Community College. His first job was at a shoe manufacturing plant. It was the Rochester, who was the MP at the time for his constituency, Southeast St. Elizabeth, that gave him that break. So you see, there's the connection with the PNP. So he got that job in Kingston. He later sold insurance and he sold insurance at the company, it's now defunct, called Alico Life Insurance. Soon after that, in 1979, at the age of 20, he left Jamaica with $13 in his pocket. But those days, $50 was the maximum because of the money that was leaving the island. $50 was the maximum. But his father gave him money in the morning and said, son, this is all I have. All I have to give you is this $13 and my integrity. Right? I can pass that on to you. And he pocketed the $13 and off he went to the US. So I can imagine he would have had to work and send himself to school. And after a period of time, he earned himself a bachelor's degree and then a master's degree. I don't know which university he was enrolled at, but his dream was always to return to Jamaica to make himself useful to us. And his dream was also, he said, as a boy, doing business in the United States. That was his dream. And then having established himself to return to Jamaica and make a contribution to the productive life of the country. So that's Norman Horn. Now, the next person now is, I looked up Bruce. Now, I do believe Bruce is the one that is to the near camera, and Christopher would be the other one. Bruce, how I know the difference, got them people. Them look alike, yes. Bruce is the one that has this sort of a hook nose, and Christopher doesn't. So couldn't find out much about him except to say that at the age of 12 he was playing squash, and if I remember right, he may have represented Jamaica playing squash. His name is David Bruce Bicknell, and I suppose he was named after his father, David Bicknell. And he is the president of the Waterhouse Football Club. His brother, Christopher, is the president or chairman. I think he's the president of the Arnett Gardens Football Club. And these two young men seem to have a passion for community outreach program in Arnett Gardens for one brother and the other one in Waterhouse. Bruce seems to be in love with the people at Waterhouse. Yes, ma'am. They're involved in helping people to get homes out through the Food for the Poor. And in addition to that, they were the ones, I believe, they said Bruce was responsible for the building of the, is it the Waterhouse Mini Stadium? Yes. And of course, they had put in some infrastructural work at the Seaward Gardens Primary School. So you see, they far more useful. I believe they're Jewish too, you know. Far more useful than that British tourist. Can't show us soul that thing what him do. Anyhow. So Bruce received the Order of Distinction Commander rank for significant contribution, community service in support of social development and education in the inner city. And I do believe he received it in 2019. Now, let me see what else. Yes, so they're very much involved in sports, community outreach, and assisting poor people, particularly in Waterhouse. And Chris is involved in Arnett Gardens. Now, you will all remember the story when Mark Golding was treasurer of the PMP in 2018, and then decided to hatch them plot to overthrow the PMP and put in them riser self. He had left, giving the excuse that he has some responsibility to the Arnett Gardens Football Club. Remember, my treasurer, you know, raising funds for them, and he can't manage it to work. We beat him bad with that, you know. Anyhow, so he left as treasurer, and Lisa took over, and he went, and I believe he was the chairman of the. I believe he was the chairman of the Arnett Gardens Football Club. Now you remember that Patrick Roberts was the coach, and I think maybe the president, and him put out one piece of thing to push out Patrick. Withhold funding from the football club, if you remember the story, right, that was in the Gleaner, and insisted that he's not going to be putting up any money until Patrick goes, right? And he gave his reason as to why I'm wanting to go. For 2 months, some of the players were not paid, right? Because him saying now work with him. So evidently he may have been the main financier at the time or sponsor. And eventually Patrick decides, I'm not going to make the players them suffer anymore because them have families to take care of and so on. And him step aside. And so the Englishman now put Christopher Bicknell. I believe he was the president. I don't know. I think they were floundering at one time. We're talking about the football club. Not sure if I'm still being heard, but let me continue. And don't know what the status is of Arnett Gardens today. Should have found out before I call you. But I don't think they were doing so well after a period of time. Now, what Mark Golding told the club, remember right, is that the reason why I want Patrick to go is because him have some plans for Arnett Gardens football club that will now gain him more sponsors. Same strategy in using the PNP. Money. Right? Get rid of Patrick and I will bring in the money. Right? Get rid of Patrick. Well, me now really do nothing, but me now work with him. Same thing I'm going at the PNP and it work in both occasions. Right? The PNP didn't tell them, say them need somebody with money. So the people in there, the comrades, believe that this man now will make them win because he's going to bring in friends, a lot of Tapanaris, people that will bring in the money and, make the party can win elections. So that was now what he had used. Only to find out that the man mean no help. He promised them $10 million to look after the workers who were in need. And never told them. Him talking about dishonesty. He never told them that it was a trust fund. Now, if you know how a trust fund works, the 10 million is a principal, and it is invested, and it is out of the earnings, the return on the investment. That is what is being paid out, which means that in $10 million is preserved unless them invest it and lose it, right? So if the PNP decides them don't want him anymore, or them all get rid of him. Him just take up him trust fund and go with it because the 10 million is still there. The understanding was that the money had come out of his own pocket. That's why him set up it as a trust fund. Right? He never set it up as a fund that he was trying to see if he can get others of him Tapanaris people according to him to contribute to. And then spend the 10 million or what portion of it per year for health party workers. No. Set up as a trust fund. So you can take the principal and lock it down at any time. That is the man that the PNP put there. Talking about him is the right man. Him are the right man. So them they're in opposition. Third term. For making that stupid decision that they made. But anyhow. So that's that. So you've heard the background now of the two persons that are in this cascas. And you must be wondering, Lord, man, me there long enough now. What is this cascas about? Well, let me start with Tankwell. I couldn't get the information of the company's office. Because I like forget my thing from source, But Tankwell was founded by the Bicknell brothers, father David Bicknell and a man called John Greaves in 1970. And it was a steel fabricating business at that time that eventually grew into what they call today an industrial giant. And they are the ones who implemented most of Jamaica's major pipeline projects. So, so they did fairly well. And I would not have gotten it unless they were offering the government a good price. That's how these people do it and make money. You understand? Yes, and they're reliable and then do the thing on time and so on and so forth. So, of course, the Ulsters passed on, or they passed the business on to the second generation now of Bruce, whose real name is, or full name is David Bruce Bicknell and Christopher Bicknell. And there is somebody else called Rusty Zaka. And they expanded the Tankwell into a steel distribution company. And in 2006, they invested in the Rio Bueno Wharf, which has 500,000 square feet of warehouse space. And you're going to be hearing more about that shortly. Chris, I do believe, is the group's chairman and CEO. And I do believe Bruce is the general manager. And I say do believe because, these things can change. And without getting information from the company's website, because what is on the company's website, I eat that. You understand? And if it differs from any new information that was printed in the paper, I do believe in 2024, he was the general manager, so they described him. So what has happened? ARC Manufacturing, whose executive chairman is Norman Horn. Norman Horn. Oh, before I go on, I should also let you know that when it comes to the politics, the Bicknells, Bruce, they said even though he's working in Waterhouse and doing so much for Waterhouse, they say he's a Labour Party supporter. Don't know if he's a member, but a Labour Party supporter. And Christopher is a PNP, right? Now, they also said that they are both funders. They donate to the political parties, and I do believe they donate to both political parties. And we all know that Norman Horn donates to the PNP, very possibly to the JLP because of that Cascas. You remember in 2020 when he was named senator and he had a U.S. Citizenship and therefore was not qualified to sit in the Senate. He had promised Dr. Peter Phillips he was going to give it up and then change his mind when he realized what was going on. And so they asked him to step aside, and it took a little while, but he did. Right. So he, you remember, he had asked them for his money. And the reason why he had asked for the money is because the PNP is not a corporate body. So it is not the PNP itself that is responsible for any loan that he got. It is the officers. It's an unincorporated institution, meaning that it is the principals who are running the organization and then responsible for the debt. No bill can't come in its name because it's not a corporate body, so to speak, right? So it has to be in the name of somebody who is the officer. So when it was clear that they were pushing him aside, he wanted to know about his money. He wanted them to acknowledge the debt. Once they acknowledge the debt, it means that the new president will ensure that he's being paid. And of course, Mark never want to acknowledge the debt. And then put out all kind of rumors upon him. So his money, why no one leave? And then kind of something there. But that was the real reason why I asked them to acknowledge the debt. And I think if I remember right, that debt was coming from Traffic Bureau. When the PNP decided to give back the money, and then they done spend it already, and he was the one that found the money and gave it to them so they could pay it back. Yes, that's the background of that. So now, Norman Horn and ARC Systems, and then now you have ARC Manufacturing. And then you have Tankwell Metals. Both of them are involved in the business of importing what is known as rebar, R-E-B-A-R. What is a rebar? It's a steel rod that you put in your blocks when you're building a house. Then call it rebar. And so when you see it appear in the things I'm going to show you, that's what we're talking about. The steel. Now, it's not made here. So they import it. And they are therefore competitors. Now, Norman Horn complained 3 times about the pricing strategy that Tankwell used. And he made the allegation to the Fair Trading Commission, which is there to ensure that there is a level playing field and nobody is trying to dominate the market and trying to restrict competition, because that's not good for we. You understand? Because that means to say high price. So they are there. The act was passed in 1991, and it was there to and introduced to encourage competition. Because for those of you old enough to remember them old time days, what used to happen? The gas station and just get together and decide I'm going to raise the price, and because there was no competition, the price go up. All of the companies that were manufacturing anything in Jamaica, they got special treatment. Nobody could import and compete with them. So the price was just going up and up. So when the PNP came now, they solved that problem by introducing the Fair Competition Act. All right? And that has been in place. And all of that cartel business, which is what we used to call it, had to cut out. It had to cut out. And everybody had to show them price different. No matter how different, it has to be different. Any sign at all that them grouping up, and you know what happened in the United States, or them are trying to take over, and which would then restrict competition. Then you know them that is not good for business. So they would be in trouble. So in the year 2000, that was the first time when Norman Horn with his company Arc Systems made a complaint to the Fair Trading Commission that Tankwell was selling their steel bar below cost in order to run out those persons who were their competitors out of business, and then raise the price when the competitors gone. That was the allegation that was made. And the Fair Trading Commission investigated and found, yes, they did reduce the price below cost, but it was only for a month at a time. And so they said that was not enough to run anybody out of business. You understand? Because you go and buy steel and it probably will last you a couple of months, maybe 2-3 months. So it won't run anybody out of business. So for that reason, they found that they were not guilty of trying to restrict competition in the market as a dominant player, because that has to be established, right? It has to be established, first of all, that Tankwell is a dominant player. And that was established by their market share. As you can see, it says here that the market share, where it says market share, it says that, let me just cover it, give me a little second. Let me just open it so I can highlight it and read it better. Yes, second. Their market share is 75%. And the market share for ARC is 25. So clearly it's only them two in the market. Now you will have some persons who have, the capacity and the money to go and buy directly from foreign. But in this case, there are two players in the market. And the market share, the one that has the most of the market, is Tankwell. So they now have to be careful about how they're pricing them products. And the product that they're concentrating on and focus on for the report is the rebar. So that is it. So they have a massive market share. The second thing that the Fair Trading Commission was asked to establish was whether or not Tankwell did indeed price below cost, and for how long, because now the length of time is important. And there was a second complaint. Well, for the first complaint, yes. So the length of time was important. And since it was only for a month at a time, they said that was not enough to chase people out, because that would have to be established as well. So that was that. Now, the second time that our complaint about the pricing strategy of Tanquil Metals was in 2009. And it was the same complaint that they are pricing their steel bar below what it costs them to buy. So if they buy 1,000, let's say they buy 10 metric ton for say $1 million Jamaican, right? They were selling at a price below, like say maybe 900. When the Fair Trading Commission went and investigated the allegation, having established that they are still the leader, the dominant player in the rebar market, they found that yes, they did sell the steel bar below market price for almost about 4 months or thereabouts, which now means that they're in a problem. But here's what saved them. They sold it below what they had paid for it, but it was above what the replacement cost is. And as long as there's a replacement cost, then they are selling above that, then them good. Now, why is that? Remember, this is competition at all. And I think you get a license to bring in steel into Jamaica. And at any time, a country, for whatever reason, may have steel bar selling for half the price, quarter the price. And you hear about it, you had the money, you wrong go get it. Now, they would have bought their steel bar for, say, let's just give an example, for $1 million. And when they take a stock, the price drop to, say, 800,000. Now, they have a problem because it means that ARC is going to go and buy the steel at it and bring it in to sell it for like maybe 850,000, right? And make a profit. And their steel bar will get stuck. So even though they are the majority player, and at some point ARC would run out after being sold out, then can go back and buy more and so on, and them would be stuck. So once them realize that the price fell to whatever it was, right? They had to adjust them prices. So them had to adjust the price below what it was that they bought it for, because that is where the new price is outside of the country, in order to ensure that them stay competitive. So even though they were selling below the price that they had bought it for, they were selling it above the replacement cost, because at some point when they replace the steel bar and bring it into Jamaica, depending on our market condition, they're going to probably sell it at the same price, because it's only them arguing at the market. So if they were selling it to Jamaica for, say, 1.2 million, after they bought it for $1 million, and then they realized that the price of foreign dropped to 800,000, and they know that ARC is going to get the cheap one, bring in and probably sell it for, say, $1 million. You understand? Who will go buy it from them? So them have to drop the price, right? When them finally, either them going to get a new stock, or before them even finish selling off what them have, then go buy stock and bring in. Makes sense. Buy it at the cheap price, because at some point it'll go back up. And then what they do now is average out the price and then put up markup on that and then sell it. They can now compete with ARC, who bringing it in from foreign at the lower price. You understand now? So that is the reason why the law understand and accepted that selling above replacement costs is not a violation of the Fair Trading Act. Or you understand? Because if you were forcing them to keep the price at the $1 million when somebody else can go buy it at 800,000 and come in and sell it for maybe 900,000 or $1 million, when it cost you, it means you would be sending these businesses out of business. You get me? So that was what happened at that time. So they were safe. Now, what happened this time around though? Well, let us go to the conclusion first. I'm in the wrong section. Good. Let's go to the conclusion. There. So even though I can bring it bigger, I'm still going to have a difficulty reading it. So it says at the summary and overall conclusion, that they came to. So we're going to start at the summary. The complaint that was lodged against Tankwell for the third time by ARC was lodged August 16, I believe, of 2024. So that is more recent. And so when they went and investigated, they came to certain conclusion. Let me read you the conclusion. It says that in August 2024, ARC filed a complaint that, among other things, and the first complaint was that Tankwell's license to operate a sufferance war provided Tankwell with an unfair competitive advantage over its rivals. So what is a sufferance wharf? It is a private wharf. So they had applied in 2006 with the Minister of Finance, that was Omar Davies, for a license to operate a private wharf where they cannot, because of the volume, right? Where they cannot bring in the lumber and steel and I think the rebar and one other item and stock it, right? It costs them less because, it's their facility. That would be the theory. So Norman is saying them operating this wharf was detrimental to other players because it gave them an advantage for them not to pay no storage to nobody. Well, the Fair Trading Commission found that, look, there were something like 17 other private wharfs, sufferance wharfs, right? And 5 of them locked down. One of them being the Rapid Sheffield Pier in downtown. And I think is a Shell Pier, I think one of them oil company. And there were 3 others, one in Old Harbor, one in Portland, and so on. And secondly, there was no bar because in order for you to prove that the dominant player has an advantage and taking advantage of it, so to speak, the Fair Trading Commission would have to prove that I just lost my train of thought. They would have to prove that there was nobody else can enter into the market. There was a bar, and there is no license that was given by the Minister of Finance that says that Tankwell has the exclusive right and nobody else can come in the market. You follow? So anybody can go and apply and get them sufferance license if they believe it is profitable to operate their own wharf. So they dismissed that. So that was that. They went on to say now, ARC also complained that Tankwell was selling rebar below costs to the detriment of rivals, and that now they had to investigate under the Fair Trade Commission Act, the Fair Competition Act. Yes, they are the Fair Trading Commission, and the Act is the Fair Competition Act. Section 20 and 21, I do believe. Yes, so that's what they said here. So if they were doing so without any good reason, selling the rebar below cost, without any good reason, then they would have been in contravention of the Fair Trading Act. Let me close this window. So next we have what it says here now. Oh, I need to go forward. I'm in the wrong section. So they said now that the commission investigated the challenged conduct. So what they call a challenged conduct. The conduct that ARC is complaining about is the allegation that they were selling the rebar below the cost to buy it. And so that is the challenge, that is the conduct, and what they're doing is challenging that conduct. So it's called a challenge conduct, right? So they're saying that the commission investigated the challenge conduct under sections 19 to 21 of the Fair Commission Act. which prohibit, and this is what the law says, it prohibits any action of an enterprise occupying a dominant position. It has to be the one that is occupying a dominant position, not the minority, right? In a market from abusing its dominance to the detriment of effective competition. And now I'm going to give you another example, and everybody will get this one. Grace Kennedy, I would say, when it comes to processed food, Grace Kennedy is a dominant player. Dominant because if Grace Kennedy selling something for say, let's say I'm selling a bully beef for say $400. I know what price bully beef is when I eat meat, right? So I'm selling a product for $400. Everybody else will price the product below. The ones that were coming from foreign may be higher because of the duty. And also the people who buy those foreign ones are usually sometimes, most of the time, foreign people. And them not really look on the Jamaica like a ticky price. They want Del Monte that them a buy. So I mean, because they don't know about Grace. But we know about Grace. So if Grace priced them item at $400, everybody else will go price it below. Suppose Grace decides that they're going to drop the price of all of them products because Grace has a big market share, right? And then decides that they're going to half the whole of them product. You know what happened to the whole of the other business then? The whole of them would, depending on how long it went on for, because if it's just a promotional thing, they might be able to weather the storm. But for them sitting now go sell, not even ask them. You get me? People go just run and buy Grace. That is what we're talking about here. So it turns out that Tankwell is in a dominant position in the rebar market. Good. So it says that the commission concluded that a relevant market for assessing the effects of the challenged conduct is a market of rebar. So they also had to establish what the market was that the competition is taking place in. And they decided and realized that it has to be rebar. And the thing about the rebar, for those of you, what I understand about it, is that it is when it comes to constructing the block and steel houses, the reinforced concrete houses, there is no real substitute because with the temperature change, the block is going to expand and contract, right? And what they wanted was a reinforcing item that can, keep the block, I suppose, upward, firm, whatever. And when it expand and contract, they needed that reinforcing item to expand and contract at the same rate. If you put something inside of that block that expand at a faster rate when it comes to the heat than the block, what will happen? They will mash up the block. You get me? So that is it. So there's no real substitute for it. The block, once you're building a building, needs the steel bar. Good. So it says here also the commission concluded that Tankwell is likely abusing its dominant position in the relevant market, which is the market for steel bar, and harming rivals and customers. The only rival here is R. Customers are harmed because if they are doing something that is limiting competition, then they must expect at some point to benefit from it, which means they won't raise their price. And that is how the customers are negatively affected. Right, so we get that. Now, we're going to go through now, it's a whole heap of material. So we're going to skip through to come to the reason why they came to this conclusion. And this is very important. I know you must be wondering, well, why do I want to sit down and listen to it? Very important because a lot of it may be taking place elsewhere in the market and we don't recognize it. So we need to recognize it and we need to understand why it was that the Bicknells were saying them, going to court and appeal the decision of the Fair Trading Commission and so on. Because I'm sure you would have heard a report in the media about the findings. And of course, it look good on them. So them a try to, especially as a little Jamaican youth, they come from far and build himself to reach when then them at Panaris, by Jamaica, in a good pan them. So them a try to see if they can at least repair them damaged reputation. You get me? Yes. So this is why and I find it fascinating, right? Me like to learn. So what it was that they had done, why it is that the Fair Trading Commission this time around found that they did indeed abuse their dominant position. What they did, evidently, based upon the evidence that they had in terms of the price, they had that for 4 months sold the price of the rebar below not only the costs that they purchased it for, but also below the replacement cost. And that's the problem there. How long did they do it for? That's the question. Now, let me explain something to you now about the relationship between these two competitors. Tankwell imports, and they imports all the time. And they import all the time. Sorry about my grammar. But ARC, they import, but not all the time. Whenever it is that it costs them more to bring in the item and they know they cannot compete. This is my understanding, of the report when you put 2 and 2 together. When it comes time now for them to replace them steel stock, them look on the price of foreign and realize that it's upon the price that Tankwell is selling it for. Make no sense and go for it because then we'll not be able to bring it in and compete. But there was a reason why that was so. So what they did, they, instead of bringing it in, since them can get it cheap from Tankwell, them went into an arrangement with Tankwell, and Tankwell was importing in their stock. So remember, they are 25% share. So let us say, for argument's sake, Tankwell was bringing in 100,000 metric ton, and ARC was bringing in 25 tons. When they got to Tankwell, and had an arrangement with them that Tankwell would then import and sell them at a knockdown price because they're going to sell it back to other customers. So Tankwell was able now to increase Moses, I can't talk to you now doing a video here. So call it back. So sorry about that, people. It's one of my subscribers calling about something. So when they do that, I'm going to put it in no disturb. I know him here, I want to say, All right, that's that. I turn it off. I will call him back. I don't think he heard what I said. So, where was I? So you can imagine that when Tankwell go and buy now 125,000 metric ton, they will be getting a bigger discount. So they're making an extra profit from the suppliers. And then they bring it in and sell the 25,000 to ARC at a knockdown price so that they can sell it. But guess who controls the price? Tankwell. In circumstances when they have the arrangement with ARC, the Fair Trading Commission found that they sold the rebar at a higher price. But every time that ARC see an opportunity where the price falls, so then just come out of the arrangement and go buy the rebar abroad, that is the time when Tankwell dropped them price. But Tankwell had an argument. And let me see if I can find that. They are saying that the reason why they dropped the price is that the arrangement that they have, there's an MOU between themselves. Here it is. They have an MOU between themselves and ARC that they will supply ARC. And there's an economy of scale that they benefit from because they are now importing more, but they are the only importer and the only supplier in circumstances when ARC is buying from them. So they sell ARC at a discounted rate, so ARC can go and sell. And they are also still supplying their customers. Now, whenever it is that ARC is so there's an MOU. Yes, there's an MOU. And the arrangement is that ARC can come out of the arrangement at any time, but they must give them notice. Because remember, they might buy the thing for ARC and bring it in. And if them just run out and go buy it a foreign, so they might end up stuck with these higher price steel bar when ARC find them can get it lower. So that arrangement went on maybe about 4, 5, maybe 6 times over the course of the, from 2000 onward. And in the 2019 and 2021, and I think since 2023, November, if I remember right, ARC has not bought anything from Tankwell. So what has Tankwell been doing? Based upon what I read in the report, they have been reducing the price, right? And keeping it low. And ARC may be well within their right to suspect that they were doing it deliberately in order to force them to come back to them and in another arrangement, because that is when they make the money. And what they found in the Fair Trading Commission, right, was that when they look at the markup that they get after, and it's not a whole lot, 14%, 19%, and so on. When ARC is buying from them, the markup is greater than when ARC is importing. At that point, them selling the bars below price, right? And what the Fair Trading Commission found was that they actually, in 2 months of entering into the arrangement with ARC, the new MOU, within 2 months, the money that they had lost over the 11-month period, they make it back in 2 months. Here we are. ARC last received rebar from Tankwell on the supply arrangement 2 in September 2021. And here now, Tankwell was given their own, explanation as to why it is they were selling below price. And what they were saying basically is that the last time, I think it was, ARC just run out of the deal. Them run out of the deal and went and bought the rebar from foreign and came back and was selling it lower than what they were selling theirs for. So they had no option more than to sell it below, right? They were arguing that ARC remained in the MOU until the price dropped. And what the Fair Trading Commission found is that, yes, on 1 or 2 occasions that did happen, but in 2020, when the price fell by almost 23%, they did not leave the agreement at all, right? So you can read as I scroll through. So I'm just giving a summary here. And they said here now, in September 2021, when that was the last time ARC received the rebar from Tankwell under that particular agreement. And in October 2021, the world price for the rebar fell by 5.1%. Then again, they said it is unlikely that this would be considered as a sharp decline in world price, considering the Commission observation that the world price had declined by 33% in 2020 and ever run out and leave them, right? But they do agree that with the argument that Tankwell had, that there was at least 1 occasion or 2 when it appeared as though that's what they did. Soon as them see the price drop, them come out and go import. And when them import? What happened when them import? because they got it cheap, much cheaper than what our Tanquil bought it for. They were able to bring it in and sell it at a lower price. That forced Tanquil to sell it below cost. Well, here's what the commission found. That for some amount of time, let me find it for you and read it for you. But this part now is important. So just give it a background. And you can pause it and take a read for yourself. So they're talking about what is known as the supply arrangement that is with ARC. That's what they call supply. And when they talk about direct importation, that is when ARC is importing. So both terms is referring to ARC, whether they're buying from Tanquil, the supply arrangement, or they're buying directly from abroad. So let me find that now. Yes, it's about 43 now. That's why I have to summarize it because we're going 51 already, 51 minutes. All right, I soon find it. Now, while I'm looking for that, well, let me continue. Let me continue. Here we are. So, at paragraph 171, it says, they had a table and a block out most sides, so it never make any sense. Me show you. It says, the table shows that using the 2-month replacement cost measure over an 81-month period, Tanquil at the time, Tanquil had set its price below both the acquisition and the replacement costs. That is when they get in trouble, right? But for how long? That is what now they're going to determine. How long do they do it for? 4 months. Who would be able to sustain that kind of pricing? Let me continue. It was also observed that Tanquil set its price between acquisition and replacement, which means they were safe, for 13 months. And with the price set above acquisition and replacement costs for the remaining 64 months. So it is the time when they had price, when they had set the price for the rebar below acquisition and below replacement, that is what now the Fair Trading Commission must look at. Whether or not that was sufficient, that 4-month period when they had done it, whether or not it was ongoing, straight, or it was intermittent. And if it was ongoing, was that enough now to put the other competitor, which is ARC, into trouble in terms of running them out of the business? Either them flop or them have to go back to Tanquil to enter into an agreement with Tanquil, so I mean, and stop import, because they would not then be able to import. So the Fair Trading Commission had to look now, what was the price on the world market? What was the price that Tanquil was selling it for? What price they bought it for? And whether or not, what it was that ARC was doing. All of that had to be taken into consideration within this 4-month period now, because all other months, them good. Get me? Yes. So let's see now what they found out. So here is the chart. You can have a look at this chart. They talk about the 2-month replacement cost and so on. You can pause the video and have a look. Now, they give a summary. Based on the statistical analysis of the data, that is the world price, the price that Tanquil bought for, the price that they were selling for. They were also looking at what them call the average cost. In other words, you buy the stock at one price, the new stock coming in at a different price. You have to average it out and get your variable. They call it a variable price. So that's what variable mean, right? Yes. So there is also something else that the Fair Trading Commission must take into consideration. At the time when they were selling below price, how much benefit was the consumers getting from it? If they were not getting any benefit from it, or not as much benefit as Tanquil, them in a problem. You get me now? Yes, man. So I could continue. So they say, based on the statistical analysis of the data, the commission concludes that the supply arrangement, that is ARC buying from Tankwell, allowed Tankwell to exercise greater market power by increasing prices during the supply arrangement. So every time that they entered into this arrangement with ARC, them raise the price. And why not? Because there's no other competition. You follow? Good. And also bear in mind that they were also getting something off the price when they increase the volume of purchase. They get a further discount. You get my point? Yes, man. So let's continue. Now it says here, Tankwell, it says here that the supply arrangement allowed Tankwell to exercise greater market power by increasing prices during the supply arrangement relative to the direct importation. So every time ARC imports, then price drop. And every time they enter into an arrangement where ARC is buying from them, the price go up. So these are now seen as red flag, but they still have to continue investigating. They need to know now if this was being done deliberately. So let us read on. They said now the commission notes that the order of magnitude of potential benefit to customers, because, you then we use that argument, arising from the supply arrangements, which is a price reduction of 9 cents to 13 cents in the dollar. That's 13%. Is smaller than the order of magnitude of the market power, which is a price increase of 51 cents in the dollar. You see how much them got? They were able to increase their price by 50% whenever it is that ARC is buying from them. And all them pass on to their customers at 13%, between 9 and 13%. You see? Exercise during the supply arrangement. As such, the commission concludes that the customers may not have shared in the benefits arising from any reduction in unit costs, resulting from Tankwell's importation of greater volumes of rebar during the supply arrangement. So that now is the problem. They needed to show that when they did that reduction below the cost to purchase and the cost to replace, the replacement cost, it did benefit the consumer because they pass on the benefit to them. And what they found out when them do them analysis of the figures is that Tankwell was getting 50% increase, right? And all they pass on to the customers was 13%. So the customers did not benefit as much. Them I don't want to really benefit, right? Good. Now let's see what else I can bring you. Now I want to just you can look at this and you will see the 3-month replacement cost, how much they bought it for over the period, and so on. When the total average cost, yes. When the direct importation, when ARC imported directly, and they show you what it is when they have the arrangement with Tankwell. As you can see, let me just look at the first two. As you can see, when ARC is importing directly, right? Tankwell, the replacement cost was $633 US per metric ton. But when they were in the arrangement with Tankwell, look at how much Tankwell replacement cost was. $577. That's a benefit that they got for being able to import more. You understand? They call it economy of scale. And they admitted that they were able to benefit from economy of scale. So they were taking Norman for a kunumuno. Norman, man, they were taking it for a ride. And then you took them to the Fair Trading Commission. So let me see what else it says here. Well, it just gives you the same information that I gave you, right? And they are saying that the 2-month replacement cost of $613 US per metric ton during the period when ARC was buying from them was 11% less than the replacement cost of $682 per metric ton. recorded during the period when ARC was buying directly from foreign. Using the acquisition costs and 3-month replacement costs, the cost savings during the time when ARC was buying from them were recorded at 13% to 9%. That's the point that I made, right? Let's move along. So let's see now. All right, we made a point already. So they had used a software just to be sure and plug in the figures that they had. And they're saying that software confirms that tank well prices were on average greater during the time when ARC was buying from them compared to when ARC was importing. And the results indicated that 37.396 on the supply arrangement dummy variable array load. This indicates that tank wells prices were on average $34 US greater during period of when ARC was buying from them compared to the period when ARC was importing. So there's no doubt about it, right? But again, Tankwell had said that the reason why them had to drop them price was every time that ARC imported, them lower the price from them and then have to drop for them one, right? But they were not passing on the benefits when ARC come to them to buy from them to the customers, and they said and get the problem. Now this is a bombshell. It says at paragraph 154, based on these calculations, the loss in producer surplus, in other words, what they're saying here, that when they were selling below replacement, they had actually made a loss. And they're saying when they apply the common sense, there's a common sense, economic common sense to it. Why would you be selling below cost when you did not have to? Because they said, based upon the size of the market that they control in rebar, they did not have to drop the price at all, whatever it is that the minority competitor is doing. People will still have to come to them and buy, right? And they said they found no good reason why they were lowering the price to the point where they actually made a loss. You understand? And what they said is that the loss in producer surplus Tankwell incurred during the 11 months that Tankwell sold rebar below cost and, hold on, let me read that again. Based on these calculations, the loss in producer surplus of whatever the amount was, Tankwell incurred during the 11 months that Tankwell sold rebar below cost was recoverable within 2 months of the supply arrangement with ARC. 11 months, they were trading below cost and losing money. And within 2 months, that is when they forced now ARC to come back to them, when ARC stock finished. And then when they go look and see how much they have to go pay for the rebar, they realized it no make no sense and bring it in. They went to Tankwell and said, well, you can bring it in at a cheaper price. So sell me. And they went to the arrangement. And within 2 months, all of the money they lost, they got back. So you can imagine for the months that every month after that, how much money they would have been making on top of that. You follow? So if they were in the arrangement with them for say 8 months, just imagine how much profit they were making, right? And so this is a reason why the Fair Commission, Fair Trading Commission, found that what they were doing was deliberately attempting to, or not what they were doing, what they may be doing, because it's an opinion, and how they were, and the coincidences would suggest that they were abusing their dominant position in order to force the competition to come to them and do business when they make a big profit, and then drop them price to the point where it forced the competition to have to come back to them. Except from about 2023, ARC never went back to them. And I think it's the attempt maybe in that period, I think it's sometime in 2024 that they were arguing up, they were complaining about. And it was in that period, I do believe, that they had dropped the price too low, that even it went below the replacement cost. it would seem as if, on the face of it, that it may have been in response to ARC's pricing, but the Fair Trading Commission did not find that. What the Fair Trading Commission was saying, that when it comes to your variable costs, both you and your competition always looking to sell above your variable costs. That's how you make a profit, right? So this was a bombshell. And then it went on to say, the supply arrangement with ARC was in place for a period spanning 43 months. Make back the whole of the money that they lost in 11 months. You can imagine how much money they were making in 41 months. Now, let me go back to that arrangement that they talk about. Here we are. They call it the no economic sense test. This is something that they have to look at as well. Is it that there is something that they were doing that doesn't make any sense? And what they're saying is that the commission implemented the no economic sense test to assess the selling below cost strategy observed by Tankwell. This test assesses whether it would be profitable for a dominant firm to engage in the conduct if the primary objective of the conduct was not to restrict competition. Your intention is not to restrict competition. So what other reason would you be doing it for? The challenge conduct, selling below price, cost, fails the no economic sense. Hear that? The challenge conduct fails the no economic sense test if it would be irrational for the dominant firm to implement in the absence of its anti-competitive effects. And here's what they say now. In a competitive environment, a firm's price covers its variable costs. That's how you make a profit now. Pricing below variable cost is irrational without more, and therefore makes no economic sense for a profit-maximizing firm, for that is what you're going to business for make profit. It makes no economic sense for a profit-maximizing firm operating in a competitive environment, since the dominant firm could increase profits for reduce losses or reduce them losses by raising prices to cover its variable costs without expecting to lose market share. That's why they're dominant. Since rivals are also expected to cover their variable costs as well. So, the same conditions, except that they're operating on a bigger scale. So they have economic advantage because of the volume that they're buying in. All you have to do is price something at above the variable cost. Cut a little into your profit. If you want to be competitive, the other man will have to do the same, right? And you would always be able to sell cheaper than him unless you go foreign and get it. And then all you have to do is go foreign and get it too. And then average out the price and carry on. Now let's see what else I said. In contrast, selling below cost would be profitable for a dominant firm if it were undertaken to either induce a restriction on competition or sustain an ongoing restriction on competition, right? That is when it will be profitable. But why? The extent to which selling below cost can sustain an ongoing restriction on competition is highlighted in the various economic theories of cooperation. Basically, what you're saying is the firm had to anticipate that at some later date, they would be able to make back the money that they are losing. And they already showed us that that's exactly what happened. They were cutting them costs for 11 months, right? Selling below costs. And for 4 months during that period, they sold below the replacement cost. And yet, when ARC came back to them, within 2 months, they make back the money. And ARC ended up being in the relationship with them for 43 months. That was them controlling the whole market. You get me? Because them alone are bringing the rebar. So that was more or less what the Fair Trading Commission found. They found that it appears to them, in their opinion, that this was a deliberate ploy on their part in order to force ARC, is my conclusion now, to force ARC to come back to them so that they can make a killing, right? And when you do so, you're restricting competition. And the cost benefit that they were getting, they were increasing the price and earning 51 cents for out of every dollar. They were not passing on enough. The name Summit and give take 25 for themselves and give the consumers them 25 so that the people can, buy, steal and, and cost them less. No, they only give them 13% out of that. And that was why they get into trouble. Anyway, they said they're going to appeal. They said that the calculations were faulty, that, the calculations that the Fair Trading Commission made was faulty. Give me a second. I know this thing don't want to move. So they're saying that the calculations that they made was faulty at arriving at the conclusions that they arrived to. And so therefore they are going to appeal. So we wait to hear what the Court of Appeal says about it. And I will come back with a follow-up. Let me thank you all for joining me today. I hope you found it interesting. And if you do, please tell me in the comment section. Remember to share it, because, yes, it's kind of technical, but I hope I was able to explain these things that you often hear in the public, and you hear some jargons. I don't know what it means. I don't know what the devil I'm talking about. And it has to be of interest. Otherwise, these big men would be going at it. Competitors. Big political giants. All right, so let me sign off. I am going to sign off, and I will catch you maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. Until next time, take very good care of yourselves and walk good. Oh, and one more thing, please remember to give the video a thumbs up, right? Please go ahead, give the video a thumbs up. Should I told you from the beginning. All right, so let me sign off now, but I'm going to give you back that little that little comedy. Did you enjoy it with Betty White?
Where's the safe?
Oh my, aren't you warm in that? We wore those in Minnesota only on the coldest days.
Where's the safe?
Oh, you want to put your gun in the safe, of course. It would never fit in those small room safes we have.
The safe!
Well, I don't know where the safe is. I'll have to call our manager, Roland.
No.
Oh, that's okay. He won't mind. Roland, I'm sorry to wake you, but we have a guest here who wants to put something in the safe, and I don't know where the safe is, silly me. Oh, okay. Thanks so much. It'll just be a few minutes. Could I ask you a question? I mean, the mask is a tip-off, but are you a first-time visitor to Miami?
What about the safe?
Oh, Roland's on his way down. Where are you going?
The Carlton.
Hello? There's a male Caucasian, 6 feet tall, about 175 pounds, probably mid-30s. He's wearing a ski mask, brown eyes, prominent Adam's apple. He's carrying a .357 Magnum. And he's on his way to the Carlton Hotel. Who am I? Just a citizen who isn't quite as stupid as everybody thinks she is. Oh, I'm sorry. This is 411. Well, could you give me the number for 911?